This episode of Brains on Games is all about the cones and colors. It's also all about colors. Welcome to Brains on Games. I'm Dr. Brian McDonald, and this episode, like I said, is all about the cones and colors. It's a game that was taking over my feed when it was first released, so I did order a copy of it right away, but I've only had a chance to talk about it now. A game called Hues and Cues. Hues and Cues is a game that you can play with kids age 8 and up. It plays with big groups, so 3 to 10 players it'll work with, and you can play a game in only about half an hour. Let's take a look at the board here for Hues and Cues. Look at this beautiful board. It's got all of these colors in a gradient. You can't really see the opposite side where the blues and the purples are, but you can see the yellows and greens and oranges and browns on this side, and it sort of slowly moves towards the blues. And what you're trying to do in this game is give clues to players to allow them to guess a certain color. With all these tiny gradients, you can imagine that might be a little bit challenging, but that is the goal of the game. The clue giver will draw a card. And one of the things that's neat about this game is that the rules have a variant for younger players, where instead of drawing a card and having to choose to give a clue about one of these colors, they can choose a color that they want to give a clue about. And that prevents problems from arising if there is a color that they can't think of a clue for. But you would draw a card like this, and you've got colors on here, but each one also has a letter and a number, and that allows you to find it on the grid. There's a little bit of spatial ability involved in that, but not very much, and that's certainly not the focus of the game. So the player who's giving the clue would draw one of these cards and choose one of these colors, and then they're going to give a one-word clue, a one-word cue, if you want to use the language in the game, but a one-word clue that will allow the other players to guess what that color is. Each player has 3 of these cones, and what they would do in clockwise order is place their cone on the color that they guess that the clue is referring to. That means that if you do have a big group, it does get interesting because you can't put 2 cones on the same color, so you can block other players from guessing a particular shade of yellow or green or whatever. Each player will go around the circle and they'll take a guess at what color it is that you're referring to, and then you get to give a 2-word clue, and it goes around in the opposite direction. Same situation again. They're trying to guess that color. You're referring in both of these clues to the same color. I did draw a card before, but all of the colors on that card were sort of on my left-hand side of the board, so you may not be able to see it. But if you wanted to encourage folks to guess this yellow shade, I'll put it here where it's close. You can see it's at L2, so it's this one right here on the board. The letters and numbers make it a lot easier for you to figure out what you're referring to. What would you say about something that color? You might say Gatorade, or maybe a lemon. I don't know if that's really lemony color. It's sort of a little bit greenish. So that is a tough one to get with just a one-word clue. But that's your goal. You're trying to get the other players to guess, because you will get points if players are close. Each player might guess, and look how colorful the cones are. Like I said, it is all about the cones. So the players maybe take a guess about what color you're referring to, and then you do your second guess. Okay, and then the players have the third cone, which tracks the number of points. You may not be able to see it here, but the top of the board has a point counter where you would place your third cone in order to indicate how far along you are. Of course, the player at the end who has the most points is going to be the winner. The clue giver gives a one-word clue, and then you go around the circle and everyone guesses. Yep, you're using those verbal expression skills and your color-related vocabulary. You're not allowed to give a clue that refers to the letters on the board or a specific color or anything that's in the room with you. You're really using that vocabulary and, I would say, long-term memory to be able to kind of visualize objects that are different colors, those very, very specific shades. Other players are going to be engaging in some perspective taking. They have to imagine that thing that you're describing with just one word or two words and figure out what color specifically were you thinking of. So there's some of that social judgment there, but I really like the perspective taking part. You're imagining what the other person's describing and trying to see things through their eyes a little bit. And I think that's something that's special about this game. Once everybody's done their two guesses, you put this little frame around the color that you were giving clues about. So your color goes right in the middle of this frame. Anyone who's got their cones on the inside will get 2 points. If a player guessed exactly the color that you were referring to, they get 3. Cones that are touching the outside of the frame will get 1 point. And the clue giver gets a point for everyone who has a cone on the inside of that frame too. The game continues with a smaller number of players. The game will continue until everyone's had 2 chances to be the clue giver. With larger games, they only get 1 try each, and then you count up the number of victory points and determine the winner. And that is Hues and Cues in a nutshell. It's a quick color matching game that really requires you to develop that color-related vocabulary and do some visualization. If you have any questions or suggestions for me, you can find me at brian@brainsongames.ca. Brainsongames.ca is the website. That's where future episodes will be posted, and previous episodes are up there already. Brains on Games is the Twitter handle and the Facebook page and the Instagram feed. And if you enjoyed this video and you'd like to be notified of future ones, you can head on over to YouTube and click that subscribe button. Thanks for joining me. Hopefully I'll see you next time.